Hey guys, and welcome back to Trekyards. I'm Captain Foley.
I'm Connor Coggins and guest.
Eric Henry, hi.
That's right, we have the incredible Eric Henry from Pacific 201 joining us today to talk about a rather interesting ship design. Samuel.
But not the Pacific. Not the Pacific.
No,
we are
not
skipping
the
the ocean and we're going straight to something totally different. This is going to be quite interesting, guys. It's a Romulan ship, and Pacific's not out yet. But boy, and you've known this from other episodes, he thinks a lot about all this stuff. So we wanted to ask about the other ships in Pacific. And you haven't really seen them very much. This might be your really first part of the look at the design and influence and see. Eric, why don't you introduce the ship?
Well, we are going to be talking about the experimental stealth bird of prey known as the Kestrel, or the KR-11 from Pacific 201.
Stuart,
Very
first
cool.
impressions of this design.
Yeah, this is the first time seeing it, and I gotta say, I don't get a Romulan vibe off of it right away. I don't know if that'll change when I see more angles of it, but first off, the top part looks almost Klingon, Next Generation kind of design as far as the Negvar goes, the back of it. That's the vibe I'm getting. It's a little bit different, obviously, but the next thing I think is it would make an awesome fighter. You know, a smaller ship design. But I'm looking forward to hearing your thought process and why you went about doing things the way you did. Although I don't get a Romulan vibe, I gotta say. I'm
Well,
sorry.
before we jump to the next thing, Stuart, what do you think the scale is of this ship? Because I haven't told Stuart anything about this, because I always like to ask him this question.
No idea.
Have a guess. Compare it to, I don't know, a shuttle, a runabout, a Connie. Compare.
Well, let's compare it to... Oh, I don't know, Connie. I can't see it being very big. I would say maybe the size of the length of a nacelle on the original Constitution class. Maybe would be a guess.
Okie doke. Okie doke. Good, good. Yeah, my first impression. I mean, what's interesting about your choice, Eric? You're sort of reimagining that part of the era, but very hyper real. But you're still looking to canon, but also making your own canon, sort of. But the Romulan War. I mean, this is after the Romulan War. This is how long after the Romulan War?
It's like 40 years.
So it's a time, just like the Lost Eras of Star Trek, you know, it's a time in between where, unlike the Lost Eras, we have one ship to look at, the Ambassador. Where do you set the precedent? We know that the transition between the Enterprise and XO1 era Romulans to TOS is, you know, the shapes change from the points to the smooths, and we really only see those two ships, and one is an experimental, you know, plasma deployment system, and the other one is, we don't really know. It's a stealth something, warship, cruiser, whatever. There's nothing to go on, really. And while you can theorize and link to future ships, that is, you know, anything in the future is such a fundamentally, you know, reinventing the wheel level later, if you look at how our technology has improved. So the challenge for you is pretty, you know, incredible, and this ship is very, very interesting. Doesn't scream Romulan, but it's a stealth ship. It shouldn't. It screams Blackbird from BSG. That's a stealth ship. But the nacelles it's like Blackbird combined with the nacelles of the Romulan TOS one. That's why I'm seeing it functionally, and also a bit of Star Wars vibe with how the sort of command module shapes are. I guess similar to some of those Jedi Starfighters. And I'm biased when it comes to scale, so obviously we'll let Eric talk a lot, but let's go to the first scale shot, the top view, and this has the Pacific and the Romulan vessel from Eric's timeline, and also the stealth craft. What do you think, guys? Because scaling is always fun.
Well, I designed them, so this scale is not surprising to me.
Exactly. I mean, I think it's a little bit bigger than I anticipated.
Yep.
But I don't have a problem with that, as long as, you know, it was just hard to get scaling off that last picture. I mean,
Which is why I asked you.
We had a few windows, but there's not very many, so it's really hard to kind of base it on that. So
I was trying to be annoying with that. Yeah, way bigger than I thought. I mean, it feels like a Blackbird size. It feels like a shuttle on steroids. But this is bigger than the ship we see Enterprise. It's, you know, comparable to an XO1. I mean, obviously, internal volume is different to length, is different to scale. I mean, these are all different things. But it's pretty darn big, and you can see... I mean, would you think... I mean, obviously you designed it, but to be comparable, you know, if this flew next to the D5, the biggest ship of the Klingon fleet from 40 years ago, did you think it was that? I mean, that's quite a big thing, because often designers don't necessarily think to the gambit of the eras.
Yeah, something about the scale is I would say over 50% of the internal volume of the primary hull is not. It's not habitable. The vast, not the vast, like vast swaths of the internal volume are hardware. Basically, everything forward of the front of the wings is all stealth technology, and everything aft of the back of the wings is all stealth technology. So basically, only that little sliver where the wings, like the primary hole between the wing edges, that's where everyone lives. So there's.
So what's the crew complement? What's the crew complement then?
The crew complement is like 60.
Okay.
Or if we jump to the side scale, and this one blew my mind with the Pacific itself, because we had, you were very gracious to give us the Pacific model, which we've worked internally to make comparables. Now we can do direct scales, don't have to worry about whatevers, and so it's huge. Not only the Pacific, because of the depth, but also this stealth. I mean, a stealth ship that would go toe to toe with the NX-01. I mean, that it defies the stealth, but also it shows that its function is more to be, I guess, the highest end of stealth, the ship that can go into the deepest of missions and be there for months, and it's not the scout stealth, it's the we're gonna kick your ass stealth.
It's meant to hold its own with no backup. So it is a warship. It's not a strictly espionage ship. It's like what you said. You slip into enemy lines and you deal a massive amount of damage, that sort of thing.
But I want to hear Stuart's thoughts on the scale, then we'll jump back to the first pitch of the 3/4, so Eric can give us the whole brief about the ship. But what do you think about the side scale, Stuart, and compared to other ships in the Pacific and canon timeline?
It seems to fit right in nicely, to be honest. Like you said, it's not it's a specialist ship, but it's not. Well, I don't know how to put this. It's specifically designed to actually, go in, do what it's got to do, but it's got minimal crew, I think, for a ship that size. Like you said, most of it's equipment, which works for me. Now, I don't know if there's redundancy backups and stuff. I'm sure he'll get into that if the front half gets damaged. I don't know. But yeah, I don't have a problem with the scaling. I actually, now it's starting to grow on me, that scale. And like I said, initially I thought it was a lot smaller, but it is starting to make sense. And I love to hear a lot of the thinking behind this design. So that's... Well,
before we go into the first picture again, I will just say that you made it more of a Klingon green, because it fits in very well compared to the Romulan green. I wonder if there's a reason for that. So let's go back to the first picture. Eric, talk to us about this ship. We've rambled, we've discussed. Throw it at us.
Well, where do you want me to start?
Why is there a stealth war cruiser in Pacific? Well, don't tell spoilers. No spoilers. But why?
Well, that officially there's no Federation Romulan contact between the end of the war and Balance of Terror, right? But that's bogus. There's tons of back and forth espionage going on. Because it's just like the Cold War between the United States and Russia. Officially, there was never any fighting, but there was. There were submarines sunk. There were spies going back and forth, and some of that actually came out, and there was probably a lot more that went on that we never heard about. So I kind of went with that idea. So when people say like, well, technically there was no Romulan contact, well, very technically, there's a lot going on behind the scenes that Pacific 201 will hint at. No treaties will be broken. No canon will be upset. I don't think. But there is a Romulan influence in the story.
I feel like we've got to go back to the one last step and say what is the climate of your film, and when is it set? Obviously, we've talked about this in length previous episodes, but that was a little while ago. So give us the context again.
Well, we're 40 years after the Romulan War, and I guess 66 years before season 1 of, or what we 2266. So we're in 2200, and at this time, there's still a lot of the idea is that the Romulan War was extremely costly for Earth. They won, but they won at all costs, which, they lost a massive amount of technology. They lost a massive amount of personnel. So major blow to Earth's economy, as it were, major blow to the Starfleet. And post-war, there was a major resurgence of that kind of, Starfleet should be protecting Earth, not going out and doing this superfluous stuff. Because it was going out and doing that superfluous stuff that led to war with the Romulans, which may or may not be true, but that's the sentiment. The Romulans might have messed them up anyway, and if it weren't for the exploratory Starfleet program, it might have been a lot worse. But that's all what if. But that doesn't take away from the cultural climate where people aren't really as excited to go out. So everything's a little more militaristic. Starfleet is the Earth Navy. It's not an exploratory organization, and that's where you get USPA. They're doing exploratory stuff, but it's really limited. They have really old ships.
So this is before the second Renaissance exploration then for TOSs.
Yes.
So dark times, post-war dark times.
Yes.
So tell us a little about this ship design. What first inspired you to come up with this one, and what was the kind of design evolution process?
Well, my very first thought was to make a Romulan U-boat. And my very first design sketches, and maybe I can actually send you some of these, there were no outboard nacelles, there were no wings. It was literally just like a green U-boat. It styled like a spaceship. And I thought that might be pushing it. So I modeled that U-boat, the primary hull, and then I created the wings and the nacelles. So it wasn't quite that hodgepodge. Like I kind of started from scratch again and then built it up. But that was the original thought. Like I wanted it to evoke the U-boat, and you can still see that shape very clearly in the hull shape.
So I take it had the same function as a U-boat, kind of slip in, kind of spy on people, take out some convoys, things like that.
Yeah,
Same kind of
like
idea.
That. Yeah.
Did it have a cloaking device? Is it that advanced, or is it stealth rather than cloak? Or is that spoilers? Because if it's spoilers, hey, just cloak yourself out of the conversation and say we're not talking about that. But
it's not really spoilers, but I will tell you, in Balance of Terror, they are surprised that ship can cloak. And I have retconny workarounds for how those Romulan Bird of Preys cloak in Enterprise. And in general, my idea is during the Romulan War, Romulans do have cloak, but the only way they can cloak their ships is they have a giant, massive, basically just a giant cloaking device with warp nacelles, and they attach birds of prey to it. They warp into a battle zone, and the birds of prey detach, and they appear to uncloak, but they themselves do not have cloaking devices.
So it's a field they go in and out of?
Yes. So when those birds of prey decloak in Enterprise, they're actually just detaching from a cloak ship and, appearing.
That solves a lot of problems. Thank you. I love that.
So you can imagine what sorts of technology might be in this ship based on what I just said, but I'm not going to give you a straight answer.
Now, does that explain how the mines all have individual cloaking devices? Because if you can make mini cloaks as well.
It might be that there's a cloaking ship in that area that they can penetrate the field, but they can't penetrate the field around that particular area. The technology is better than their scanners are, obviously. They think they know everything, but Starfleet is always very full of themselves.
Yeah, I guess in a minefield, all you need is one big device in the middle of a minefield to generate the cloaking field over the entire minefield, and then you've got a cloaked minefield. You don't need the individual mines to have cloaks.
Right.
Yeah, that's.
I'm not sure exactly how they say it in the episode, but
well, you're right.
Even if they say something that breaks that, Pacific 201 does kind of softly retcon some things from Enterprise. So I would just casually forget a line here and there.
Hey, garbled transmission. I mean,
Enterprise is low in terms of Pacific 201 canonicity. Enterprise has lower priority than the original series does for me.
Yeah.
Sure.
And that's good.
If there's a conflict, TOS wins.
And I agree with that.
Okay, so it's a stealth ship. It's a U-boat design. You've obviously not continued the green of Enterprise, and you've obviously not continued the points. Was that? I mean, go through the reasons of each, because it's not visually a Romulan ship.
Yes. Okay. So
if you'd made it green, maybe it would have been. But
we're gonna say, what is visually a Romulan ship in this
pointy
era?
Green thing. Oh yeah, you're right.
And
Pointy
I was
green.
kind of going off Kirk's line from Balance of Terror, where it's like, it's been 100 years. What does a Romulan ship even look like? The idea being, maybe there's not a really clear lineage for Romulans. So like during the Romulan War, like we know that these are Romulan ships because we fight them.
Yep.
But there might not be super defining characteristics. So when they see the only way they know it's a Romulan is because it's painted like a bird of prey.
Or the energy signature is of a similar type to other Romulan ships.
Sure, but my idea was that Romulans might have a fairly ambiguous design process, because the idea supporting that is what I like is the Romulans just steal tech from everybody. So a Romulan ship might look kind of like a Federation ship, as it does in Balance of Terror, or a Romulan ship might look like a Klingon ship, or be a Klingon ship, as it is in Enterprise Incident. So what does a Romulan ship look like? That's kind of my rhetorical response to that. I purposely made this ship not look super Romulan, not only for its stealth, but because, why does it have to look a certain way? I don't think the Romulans necessarily need to brand their ships in any specific way. That being said, I think there are some characteristics that you would say, oh, that is pretty Romulan, but we can get into that later.
Yeah, and we've mentioned that before in some of our discussions about the Klingon-Romulan treaty and about cloaking devices. The fact that the Romulans, they were an offshoot of the Vulcans. They were exiled from Vulcan, basically.
Yep.
So they had to find Romulus, and then they had to design the infrastructure to build these ships. So they were always kind of behind everybody else, and they do acquire their technology through other means. So yeah, I absolutely love that. Awesome.
But I do dig that the warp engines are clearly the step in between Enterprise and TOS.
Yes, I did try to at least ostensibly blend those things. It has some of the kind of pointiness of the Enterprise nacelles, but they're clearly just tubes that they are in TOS.
Yep. No,
some ostensible attempts.
But I always find, and this is one thing that the Discovery trailers, people really harp on about. The Discovery looks so different to the Constitution class, and that assuming that's the one only design in all of Starfleet, 200 years into its history, they can only build one looking ship. If you think that, you don't understand Star Trek. I mean, just look at we only saw one, but that's besides the point. Look at Enterprise, the Conestoga, the Emmett, the Intrepid, the half saucer, then you've got a pointy triangle ship.
Right.
That does not look like a saucer. So just like this is not like a bird. It doesn't matter, there's more, a stealth ship should not look like a battleship, should not look like a cruiser, should not look like a carrier. This stylistically should look radically in some sense radically different. And this is I think any ship is built for purpose, like the Defiant, best example. Defiant is built for purpose. It looks, there's a semi saucer, sure, but stylistically radically different. This is a designed stealth ship, and to be something that is not easily recognizable, because that would enhance the stealth feature.
Which ties back into Enterprise, actually, with the flea ship that the Romulans use, the holographic ship. Looks nothing like a Romulan ship. So
we've had this discussion. I don't know if the episode's out yet, but I disagree. The other day. Because it's pointy and it is green. Well, it's not green. Well, okay, we made our version green anyway. But yes, it's designed to not look like it's form follows function. Its functions do this one thing, so it looks like that form, but it has stylistic points in the greenness of the... Anyway, yeah. So this... I mean, you should have added more flea aspects, Eric. I mean, come on, it's a Voyager ship made Enterprise ship. It's the most canon Voyager ship ever. Enterprise ship, yeah. So I don't know how in depth we should get about this, guys, because it's like I feel like everything's spoilers. But let's go to the bottom picture, or picture 4. Just like show some more elements. I always like a minimalist approach with the glowing elements, because they sort of all throughout canon they've existed except in TOS. Except Gene and Stuart, they both wanted to have the grills be lit, and the reef it does have semi-glowing pieces, but not really. But then obviously everything after that fact has got glowing elements. Everything before that has as well. So it makes more sense to put them in than not. But I love the minimalist approach. It's there but not fully. What do you think of this design, Stuart?
I just, again, same as the top. It doesn't necessarily say Romulan to me, but I do like the tie-in that he had with the U-boats, and that shape for the central hull works well. I mean, and the nacelles are very cool. I got to admit, and I do, like you guys have said, it's kind of a tie-in between Enterprise and TOS, so that works very well for me. That's about all that I have.
It's also, if you flipped the engine the other way around, it's an amazing lightsaber design.
It's true. Next shot is from the top and the rear. Again, very unique design. There is kind of a Romulan-esque feel here on the back of those struts for the nacelles. It looks almost featherish the way he's got the grilling in there. So, yeah, I think it's a fantastic looking design. But again, it doesn't necessarily say Romulan to me, which is...
It's quite a Star Wars design in a good way. Like it's well designed, if that makes sense.
It's kind of what you get when you go for hard angles.
Yeah.
Star Wars is more known for, but the hard angling here is more evocative of stealth bomber kind of that sort of look. The segmented like radar dispersion panels that probably wouldn't work so well with Star Trek level technology, but the look enough I thought was worth it.
Well, if you go to the next picture, the bottom back, again, wonderful lightsaber technology. Love it. I love you've got those fins at the front. Nice little detail. I'm sure when moving in 3D, those will really help to give it a more dynamic feel. It's odd how little shapes can change the feel. Rather than just being, obviously you took the idea of a cylinder, but it's those extra pieces you that's how you style it into something really designed, and I think there's really well designed engines.
The little fins coming off the bottom of the cells are supposed to look like talons.
Oh, nice. Bird tie-in, awesome.
Cool.
All right, so the next picture is another shot of it from the front. This again looks more Star Wars to me.
This looks like a boat with those two, that goes on the
hydrofoil.
Hydrofoil, yeah. This looks like an amazingly hydrofoil thing.
Ooh, yeah, speedboat, absolutely.
Yeah, very very speedboat.
Yeah,
nice.
And lots of nautical influences in Pacific 201.
Nice.
Boats and stuff like that. Boats and submarines.
Now, are there? I gotta ask. On the edge of the pylons, at the very edge, there's like a lit deflector kind of thing. Is that the deflector dish or the sensor suite, or what's that?
So there are three. Now there's actually a problem with these renders. There's the very front of the nose. That little square is also supposed to be lit. There are multiple points on the ship that act as deflectors.
Okay.
Or multi-role emitters of some sort. Okay. So the points of the wings, the tip of the nose, there's like the fins that come across out from the command deck. There's like those like lit squares recessed. Those are all not interchangeable, but they all have...
They're part of a system.
Because, you can't just have one big giant dish that does everything, because you could detect that. So you need to split all the roles up between different technologies that can each be more easily managed in terms of missions and stuff like that.
Yeah. Now, have you put any thought into Of course you have. You're Eric Henry. Any thought into the top speed of this ship?
Surprisingly slow.
Well, no, I expected slow, actually,
Yeah.
because the Romulans aren't known for their speed
Yeah.
necessarily.
3.5 Enterprise scale.
I would put it more in a 4 range, between 4 and 5, because more like the 4 range. Yeah. I couldn't give you a specific warp
Because it's
scale
top secret. It's a stealth ship. We can't know
Right, we
everything.
don't know all the details 100%, but
No one does.
one of the reasons is firstly, the Romulan singularity warp cores just are not as robust as the matter-antimatter reactors, but also because lower warp speeds are easier to disguise than higher warp speeds. So it probably could go faster, but at the risk of being spotted.
Now, another thing, because this is slipping behind enemy lines, what kind of defenses or weapons does it have? What kind of armaments? There's a section along the top there that's yellow that looks very similar to like a submarine or a U-boat, maybe launching missiles of some kind. So I'm just curious about armament. So
That bit there, as I said, everything forward of that area is all stealth technology. There's no weapons in there.
Okay.
But we do have we don't have any physical, like, we don't have any weapons in casing. They don't have any ammunition on board. So nothing that we would understand as your typical photon torpedo situation. Mm-hmm. But we do have some very small, like, point defense weapons kind of all over the ship, like at the tips of those fins near the top deck, and on the back, on either side of that back fin, and then on the belly there are 2 of those guns as well. They're kind of like these long, they look more like the kinds of guns that are on the deck of a U-boat, and those are a point defense. And then you have some of the heavy hitter stuff. There's those 3-barreled hexagon guns that are really close to the body on either side of the fuselage.
I assume those are disruptors, like
those are like
conventional disruptors from Enterprise.
Yeah, your more heavy disruptors, and then there's 3 on each wing. So cool. There's your. I haven't done an exact count. I could probably.
So no plasma-based weaponry then.
I figured that that sort of stuff was pretty new at the time of TOS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to hit one thing, because I noticed it basically straight away. So, you're one that understands the universe probably as well as we do. Maybe more, maybe less, but we're Trekyards, we couldn't admit to that. So, there's one detail I'm quite intrigued about. Now, on this ship, they've got 2 wings. Pretty normal. But there's 3 little dot lights on either of the wings. Now, having worked with a lot of Klingon bird of prey models, there's also little lights on the wings in very similar positions. And knowing you like I think I do, is there some link there, Eric?
I'm not going to speak to specific detail links, but if we're going to talk about the similarities between this ship and a Klingon bird of prey, we all know that the Klingon bird of prey is actually a Romulan ship, right?
No. Disagree.
No, I totally agree. Continue.
So, or there's a lot of cross-pollination.
Yeah.
Because the Klingon bird of prey has more in common with Romulan ships at the time it was designed than it did Klingon ships. So, however you want to interpret whatever happened there, I think that there is a lot of cross-pollination. So there are elements of the Klingon bird of prey in this ship, and there are elements of the D7 in this ship as well. The wings and the hanging nacelles, for instance, there are design cues taken from Klingon ships.
All right, so let's move on to the last picture. This is a great beauty shot of it with a nebula behind it, and again, a very nice looking ship. But I have to reiterate, I don't feel Romulan vibes off of it very much. So, but anything else you'd like to tell us about this ship, Eric, that sticks out that you'd like our fans to know?
It's very open-ended. Stuart, that's such a horrible question. It's like, without being spoiler, even though I know everything, so I invented everything, tell me something cool about it that isn't a spoiler.
Yeah, it's easier to answer questions, honestly.
Okay, question then.
How many astromech droids does it have on board?
Yeah, it's a,
Jeez. Do we get to see a decent amount of her in Pacific? Have you had fun rendering her doing fun things in 3D?
well, I can't tell you exactly how much we see of this particular ship. I will tell you this. The idea of the ship is more important than the ship itself.
Yep.
Yep.
Now, how do you, out of interest, how do you feel? I mean, we sort of talked about this a couple of times about bringing other ships that are in Pacific. How do you feel the fans have now seen the ship, in this 30-minute, 29-minute episode, more in this episode than they will in your movie? There's clean lines, they get to see it without all this battles going on, no lens flare, no distortion. Like, how do you feel showing it off? Like for me, I don't tend to show stuff until the right time, but here you are trusting us and showing the audience. How do you feel just giving it all away, Eric, design-wise?
Well, to me, this kind of feels like we are kind of doing the job of Starfleet intelligence. At the beginning of Pacific 201, Starfleet knows about this ship. They've seen it. They've heard whispers about it. They know what it's called. Like they know what the Romulans call it, though they get it wrong. That's a very subtle script point. They pronounce it, or they don't pronounce it. They pronounce the designation differently than the Romulan characters do. So there's a little bit of implication that their espionage tactics are not quite perfect. But so I'm okay with people starting Pacific 201 already knowing something about this ship because, as a viewer, there's some level of omniscience to watching a movie. Like, how it's going to end in many cases, that kind of thing. So we as the viewers have just gone to Starfleet intelligence briefings and we know about this ship already. Maybe as much as some characters in the movie do. So I'm okay with that.
So you're Starfleet intelligence. We're the captains asking you questions at a briefing.
Yeah,
That's the best way to look at it.
It's all part of the interactive texture of the universe that I've been trying to do. I kind of want the Pacific 201 because the fan film guidelines, I can't show as much in the actual movie, but I can make the world a little more interactive and kind of create an experience that's not necessarily just a fan film.
Trekyards is your viral marketing.
It's part of the texture.
Awesome.
Cool. And it's last thought. I mean, I'm sure we'll look at this episode, the ship again at some point to do all the last little bits of detail. But favorite and least favorite thing about the design?
I think the only things I don't like about the design are the limitations on myself as a 3D modeler. There were probably some shapes that would have been better if I were more skilled, but
it's pretty good where I'm standing, and I've got a lot of models as part of our archive.
So there might have been some things because I started modeling this a while ago, and I've gotten significantly better, and I actually remodeled it all from scratch. But then I couldn't get too far away from it because I was already kind of attached to the shape. So it's not that there's anything specific that I dislike about it. It's pretty much what I wanted it to be. I don't want it to look particularly Romulan. I didn't want it to look particularly organic. So it looks the way I want it to look. So if that answers the question.
It does. It answers both of them, actually, perfectly. So I'm looking forward to seeing this more in Pacific 201. I'm eager for Pacific 201. I mean, come on. Let's get with it.
We're shooting.
Okay, good. I'm glad. So anyway, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this look at this stealth Romulan ship, and I know I certainly did. And if you did like it, please click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe because there's so much great goodness. There's going to be more from Eric as well. I'm going to look at a few more things, and so always more to see here on Trekyards.
And if you want to support the show directly, two great ways: the Patreon, the YouTuber helping service. You support a little bit every month, sort of like a Netflix or a Hulu or whatever. It goes directly to us to help produce the show, which takes time, effort, and that will take money or a one-time donation at trekyards.com, or help Pacific 201 complete their film by that Open Indiegogo campaign. Give a little bit and help them stay up that 1 hour longer to make that render even better, to make it even sexier.
That's right.
Even with these hard lines, he'll make it sexy. I trust Eric.
And as always, I'd like to thank Eric for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you here, sir. The way you think things out is amazing, and looking forward to hearing more from you and for seeing the final product. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So until next time, guys, I'm Captain Foley.
I'm Connor Kongs.
And I'm Eric Henry.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.